Hi, I'm Eileen Field. I'm with Untitled Talk. And today I have three beautiful ladies, Laura Gray, Laurie Walker, and Deborah. Oh gosh, Deborah, how do I say your last name so I don't mess it up?
Beauvais.
Beauvais, thank you. And all three ladies are contributors for the book Mayhem to Miracles. You can hold your book up if you have it. And it's all about life stories. And for them, it's about loving relationships and how they have progressed through some life challenges to be where they are today and the person they are. So we have Laura Gray, and Laura is the founder and executive director of iPride. And she is a self-esteem empowerment program for youth, which she created in 2015. She's a published author, living kidney donor, and a fervent advocate for sexual assault victims, a proud mother of 3 sons and 3 dogs. She tries to live each day with a grateful heart and feels especially connected to herself and God when she is in nature. For additional information, you can visit her ipride.net. And then we have Miss Laurie Walker. She's a Usui Reiki master, Holy Fire Reiki master, and a founding member of Book Club Pittsburgh, and will be one of 13 women on the cover of 2021 Women's Resources Around Pittsburgh magazine. That's awesome. She's also the co-founder of the recently created Guided by Grace virtual book club. Their featured section for July 13, 2022 will be Mayhem to Miracles, and Kathleen O'Keefe will be joining live to discuss the book. That sounds exciting. And last we have Deborah Beauvais. I'm sorry, I want to say it right. Deborah Beauvais. She is founder and owner of the Dream Vision 7 radio network, a global, holistic, Boston-based syndicated internet radio stations, and it was created in 2007 with a vision to consciously serve humanity, healing and the reconnection practitioner. Oh, I'm sorry, I messed that up. She's an intuitive healer and facilitator of light as a reconnective healing and the reconnection practitioner. In 2013, Deborah created the Kids for Love Project, an enrichment program rooted in self-love, teaching kids to unify through good deeds, endangered animals, and planet health wellness. In 2018, the Kids for Love children's song was produced and is available everywhere. And she has a children's book, The Paper Dog Kids, which can be found on Amazon. Well, welcome, ladies. I'm so happy to have you on my show today to talk about your stories. And, love and relationships can be very complicated, but can be rewarding when we come through the challenges that we have had. So, Laurie, I'm going to start with you. Your chapter is called Mary Queen, and it's about sex addiction, divorce, and abuse. And there was a lot of guilt and shame and PTSD. And I think a lot of women go through that regardless of what the challenge might be. So if you could give me a little bit of backstory on where you were and the strength that you gained to come through to be where you are today.
In this story, just a real quick recap. My story is about a very special woman, my best friend in life. She was to my rescue on one of just the worst days that I've ever had, and it's really, really emotional. I call her my guardian angel. It was a very, very, like I said, low point in my life. I just found out that my husband cheated on me for the 4th time, and I just collapsed. And I barely knew her, And she just picked me up. She lifted me up, and she gave me so much to look forward to. She believed in me. We're just the best of friends. At the beginning of this year, Mary's 20 years older than me. And at the beginning of this year, she was very, very, I can't say it, she was gravely ill. And we thought that she wouldn't be with us much longer. And so I wrote the story as a tribute to her. I said at the beginning, I'm not a professional author. I did it to help me cope with the grief and the loss and the impending being without her. So she's been with me 20 years. We've had, the story is sad, but at the end, it's so uplifting because it gives you hope. It gives you things to look forward to, inspiration, and sometimes I don't know how much more to say. You have to read the story.
Absolutely, yes, and I see her as your guiding light, and I think all of you here today have someone in your story, in your journey that was a guiding light for you in some way, shape, or form. So, Laura, let me ask you, when your story from the edge of death to the gift of life happened, you had to supplement in order to cope. And just like Laura, your journey involved coping mechanisms and the need to distance yourself or separate yourself. So for you, that journey of going from that darkness to where you are now, what would you say is your pivotal point?
Question. And so I would, first of all, good morning and thank you for having this time. And to Deborah and Laurie, I was so touched by your stories, deeply touched. Even Laurie, when you just started to talk, I was feeling the tears right there with you. So I'm really grateful to be here with all of you. And wow, I think for me in my story, there's not just one pivot, there's been many pivots. And I think that's something that perhaps we can all attest to in our journey. We're heading down one path and then there's an obstacle or a roadblock, but that doesn't stop us. We just keep going. And for my trauma occurring at such a young age, I went deeply within to survive. Again, I could say the same for adult women or adults in general, but as a child with the imagination, I don't even know how to describe it, but so I went deeply within. And whereas, my story still changed up until 3 years ago when I had the diagnosis that I did. So and then, 6 months ago, I donated a kidney. So it's just, I've continued to pivot and surrender and have faith that I will be okay.
That's awesome. And, your story comes from a really dark chapter of your life where you weren't heard. And it took a while for that voice of yours to be valued and for you to be able to move forward, to find that strength within and that hope to come out of it. And I applaud you for the success that you've achieved to be here, because it does take a lot of strength. And when people read your story, they'll understand what we're talking about. And a lot of, unfortunately, children do have similar trauma in their life. And
Absolutely.
yes. And so I hope that your story and your continued interviews can be an inspiration for others to feel that they too can overcome. And you're welcome. So, Deborah, your story, a mother's mission to save her child. a lot of women would be able to identify with the abuse that women have, that you had from your husband. And from that abuse, it was that motherly instinct to say, stop, no, my child is important in my life as well. So do you want to share a little bit about the strength that came through that?
Yeah, well, as many of us, I experienced a tumultuous childhood. And my mom was a different kind of mom. She had a lot of issues herself, mental health with added alcohol. And so I just knew that from the deepest part of me, I wanted to be a mom that was there to love and support and to be safe. And not to say that she didn't do that in the earlier years when we were very young. So when I went on to get married, it was a different kind of abuse than what I was used to. Most of the abuse in the early days was more on the emotional side. And we all became moms when we were just like 9 years old. So within the marriage, I accepted the abuse, but the strength that I had was that no one was going to harm my child. And I accepted the abuse personally. And it was just something that I, accepted at that time. I was just young, I got married at 19. So anyway, when the abuse came while I was carrying my child, and it was the first child, I was in shock and appalled and just could not believe that it actually happened. For some strange reason in my young mind, I thought, well, he's not going to harm my child. And his child too, So that inner strength came from a higher guidance, I know, and the concern that I was not going to, that I wasn't going to duplicate my mom. And so that's where the strength came to just leave after she was born 6 weeks old. I was 21 at the time, and I left. And it was a challenge, you'll find in the book, and there's so many other incidences that are weaved into the story, the longer version. So anyway, I was just adamant about saving my child. And that's what drove me to really leave and survive. Yeah.
And it sounds like for all three of you, love was kind of the foundation of what was the darkness, but also the love came out of that. And
exactly.
Yeah. So if you'll tell me, and we'll start with you, Laura, what have you gained from that experience of the love in the darkness and now the love in the light? And how has that impacted your life?
Wow, that's huge, and that's a great question. For me, again, because what happened occurred over time and at such a young age, I appreciate light. I appreciate love. I found myself to be almost childlike in my empathy for others, because the deep, dark pain I felt as such a small child, I now, I almost have that there, it's going to be okay, mentality. And I am just so appreciative of the love that I feel and the support that I've had.
So it gave you a different perspective of what love was at that young age in the abuse versus what love really is and what you've been able to discover.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, what I went through, there was no love involved. It was incredibly confusing. But it wasn't until I started to share my story and speak my truth. I didn't tell anyone for 26 years. So that's when real love kicked in. And then over time, I learned to love myself.
That's awesome. And how do you share that with others these days?
Freely. Just freely, how can I be there for you? How can I help? And and through the program I started for youth.
Which I'd love to come back to that, because I think especially in today's environment, our youth needs that unconditional love more so than ever. So we'll circle back around. I want to
Right.
hear more about that. Laurie, I'd like you to answer the same question, please.
Just a quick recap again so I get it right.
Okay. The difference that you have noticed between that the darkness love versus the light love that you're surrounded by now.
Okay. My first instinct whenever everything happened and I knew I had to rebuild was I absolutely love to read. And it was just read everything that I could get my hands on. I took classes, I went to counseling. It was just, I couldn't get enough information. And what drove me was, what can I do differently? What did I do wrong? But more importantly, what can I do differently? And it was just the journey of discovering myself and self-love and understanding that it wasn't all my fault. Mm-hmm. It was, in the beginning, it was all my fault. I couldn't do anything right. I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough. And just to be able to find that place where first you have to heal yourself before you can ever think about healing anybody else or loving anybody else. And that's what led me to the Reiki eventually. And, it's interesting. In the beginning, we talked about this is a lifelong journey. It's a process. And I found that it's like your Little Red Riding Hood, and you got your basket and you're picking up this piece and this piece and you're putting it in your basket. And at the right time, everything comes together. And all those things, those little teeny tiny things that you were doing that you didn't think were important were just building to this point. And it's such a tremendous feeling, because you're like, my life finally makes sense. Everything makes sense. And then you feel this relief.
It's almost like a liberation for the spirit, right? And then the soul can express through life itself. And I know as a Reiki master myself, that tapping into that other part of life, the energy and the higher awareness, gives a broader perspective of that life journey. And I don't know that there's very many people who don't have some darkness in some way, shape, or form from which they come through to become a better version of themselves. And it's almost like, it's meant to be, but sometimes I think, does it have to be? Do we have to go through all of this trauma and challenge? And sometimes I think back on my experiences and it's like, well, why did that have to happen? But, we have to, in my opinion, we go through these experiences to hindsight, look back. So then we have the opportunity to make better choices, right? To create better opportunities for ourselves and for others. So I see all three of you doing that as a result of what you've been through and having that strength. And now you've got programs and opportunities for others to have a platform for them to find their own strength and light and be there for others, kind of like that ripple. So, Deborah?
Yes.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Much like Laurie had said, there's so many facets to our lives. And I think the first step is choosing to have life on earth. And I believe that it's all about soul growth. Mm-hmm. When you come here, you're expected to have all these experiences and the darkness comes with it. And I agree with you, Eileen, that nobody wants the heaviness, the darkness, but it's all part of life here to grow our souls and become wiser. And we never really stop. We take what we reaped through that first experience, and then we, expand from there. And we put it in like all these little pieces go into like connecting the dots of life, and it makes you stronger. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that life is what we have, and okay, what is the universe going to bring me today? And when there's a challenge, and it can be small challenges too as we go along, like technical ones, and you say, okay, well, what am I going to learn today? What am I going to learn from this? Going back to the beginning of, back when I started my family, I didn't realize this, but there was something that I knew that I had to do to get to the next place. And going back is going within and loving ourselves, finding a way to love ourselves and forgiving ourselves and forgiving others. For the longest time, I held hate for my first husband, and that did not serve me or anyone else. And then once I realized, it took years, once I realized that hatred is trauma in the body, and it can come up in health issues, then you realize, okay, there's a lot of healing to be done, but it all starts within.
Something that came to mind, a lot of things were coming to mind. I was like, oh gosh, I hope I can hold these questions. But I think I want to look at, thank you, Deborah, by the way, that was awesome.
You're welcome.
And I agree with everything you said. I know from my experience, a lot of what started me on the spiritual path and on the path of healing really started at a very young age. Now, Laura, your experience was definitely at a young age, but I have a feeling the four of us, we could see ourselves as different, right? We're a different mold in the greater society. So I want to just kind of get your thoughts and your insights from that perspective of being different. In other words, maybe more connected, more intuitive, more observant. And as children, we're not taken as seriously in those aspects that if we share our thoughts or, our childlike wonder, as you said, Laura, that you have now, I think you've come back to that. I know somehow we lose that part of ourselves when we're younger, and then we're seeking through that healing process and that growth to get that part of us back as part of I call the puzzle piece, or one of the dots to be connected. So I'd love to hear from all three of you, how you view yourself as when you were, let's say, 5, 6, and where that breakdown might have been, and finding yourself, re-emerging out of that cocoon to be that beautiful, wonderful spiritual self that you are.
I think if you're asking me to go first on that one, I think my answer on that would be that I am still that child. And I don't know if that child ever needed to, well, in a way, reemerge because of the trauma and the fear that was inflicted for so long. She definitely went into hiding. So there's a combination of reemerging and reconnecting, but also to kind of the tag what Deborah was saying about forgiveness. In my case, I forgave the abuser pretty right early on. It was forgiving myself because, like Laurie, I felt I must have done something wrong, to be in that position, and I must have been a bad girl. And so that unwinding was actually greater. And so the inner child that I have allowed to reemerge, that I've reconnected with, and I've honored her spirit every day in the energy infused to the program I pride with the kids.
Awesome. And is she happy? So does she have that
she has her moments, definitely. There's still that little sense of vulnerability, but I think we all have that. So like I said, I just honor that and give her this space and just, reassure her that all is well.
That's awesome. Laurie?
This is a fun question for me. So I like the term different because I didn't have any reference. I didn't know. And let me start with this one. When I first went to the Energy Connection, the school for Reiki, I went for meditation, and I didn't even know what Reiki was. And one of the ladies who runs it, we did the meditation, and we barely knew each other. It was my first time. And she said, "Do you think you have a gift?" And I said, I don't think I have a gift, but I know I said, but I know I'm different. And she said, that's close enough. And I said, when I was young, when I was little, and I talk about this in my story, it's very, very quickly at the beginning. I was the youngest of 5 kids. So I had 7 people, or 6 people, 7 people, bigger and stronger than me. And they told me what to do. And they told me how to feel. And they would tell me if I had a question, they didn't understand it. They didn't know how to answer it, especially my mom. I love her so much, but nobody had any answers for me. So I was really, really confused. And in our family, children should be seen and not heard. So it was this combination, and then sibling rivalry, and you're the youngest, and we're not going to take you seriously. And it was always, so I started writing poetry, and when I was 15, 16, to express myself. And it was always whenever I was hurt. That's how I had to get it out. So technically, I have been writing things just for myself, but that when I write something, that's when everything comes out, But another thing about growing up too is, I was forever called, "Oh, you're too deep, you're too emotional, you're too sensitive, you don't take this too seriously." And I'm like, just this look all the time, like, what is happening? And my brothers and sisters and, everybody in there, 1 minute, everything's fine. And then they turn on you on a dime. And then you're going, what happened? What did I do? And it was always me. It was always, I did something wrong. So I just was quiet. I was good. I tried to please everybody. I stopped talking about the questions that I had. So now it is, when I got to the Energy Connection, I said, I am home. Like, I finally found people who understand me, who get me. I said, I've always felt like I was on an island, but now I'm in a tribe. And they just took me in and embraced me, and they said, "Honey, you're just fine."
And you are, and I'm suspecting for all of you that because of honoring that original person that you are at that younger age, that it's helping you to hold that space for others and the things that you're doing so that they can learn to honor themselves as well. Because I believe so many people shut down, especially when they feel different. And I love that all the things you ladies are doing is different, but yet it all has the same purpose, right? So Deborah, let's hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I believe that it all starts, as mentioned earlier, within, and connecting with our inner child, and really nurturing that inner child, because most of us, with both Laura and Laurie, really need to start there, and going within and talking with that inner child to soothe and nurture and all of that. And then when you get to, and again, it's ongoing. It's not something that's done in a couple of sessions or whatever. It's a way of living and being aware of what your thoughts are and all. But once you're in all that space, that's when you can continue to grow and like yourself, and then you want to serve. One of the things that I ended up doing from the domestic violence is doing volunteer work for 7 or 8 years. No, for 5.5 years, I'm sorry, with women and battered children. And that was one of the pieces, and it was actually brought to me where this was many years later, where a friend had said, "Gee, you should volunteer," because I had such an urge to help others. And they knew my background. And so that's how I it was guidance, it seems, where it was just dropped down and then I acted on it. You have to act.
You do, yes.
Yes. So it was through there that started the journey of healing. Why did I allow this to happen? Why was I allowing myself to be abused? And it goes back to self-love, which goes back to our childhood and all the stuff that happens during that time. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did. No, that's great. And I think a lot of people will be able to identify with that. So something that came to mind as all three of you have shared your thoughts on that is, in those darkest times, you were feeling disempowered. And now where you are definitely empowered. So if someone's listening and they feel like they're stuck where they're at in either abuse or trauma, and if you could help them to understand what it took for you to get into that empowered state, and give them some hope, share something that they can maybe take that next step, as you said, Deborah, to be able to take action and not see themselves as a victim. So Laura, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So for me, it continues to unfold almost like a flower blooming with the different petals and the different layers. The first step for my empowerment was, like I said, I didn't say anything for 26 years. And so when I first started to speak, that was my first step of empowerment. And to have somebody either look at me and say, I believe you, or how can I help you? Which are two phrases that I use as well in my work. But also for me, in reverse, the message that I received was actually from God, letting me know you were never alone. I was with you. And that was just such a turning point for me, because I realized then that I was not alone. And I realized going forward, I'm not alone.
That's awesome. I bet that was a heartwarming experience, to have that kind of
early
message.
on in my, early on, it was the comfort that my inner child needed to know I was safe and I was no longer alone and I was going to be okay.
Would you say that a part of you surrendered to being able to move forward, and then that's what allowed it to come through for you to experience it?
A little, sort of, because the surrender on my part, surrender to me is like this huge word, like surrender, like you're walking out with the white flag. And like I said, because of the, we've all experienced that fear, and your child being told, I'm going to kill you and your mother. So I was really hesitant to just wave a flag. I had this little voice that started to speak my truth. So like I said, little by little, I think the wings spread in the form of a surrender eventually. But yeah.
Awesome. Laurie?
I'm thinking as we're going, but the thought that came into my head instinctually was my dad's voice. And, I had tried to leave him a couple of times. And, you struggle with, is my son going to understand this? Is he going to hate me? And, you're just trying to rationalize it. And my dad would say, he told me once, he goes, you're fussing with this decision and you're struggling. And he goes, but when it comes down to the time to make the decision, it won't be a decision at all. It'll be so obvious. You will be done. You're ready to move on. You're ready to go, because you'll say to yourself, I can't live another day like this. And you won't. There are resources to help women. They're out there. And there's just prayer. I'm living proof that there are guardian angels, and they'll help you and they'll show you. So please don't give up hope. Don't think you have to take that abuse, because you don't.
I agree with you 100%. And Deborah?
Yes. I would say to tell someone, tell another human being. And that's the beginning of opening up and sharing, which not only heals us, but it heals them to hear. And then it turns, and I agree also with if you don't have anyone to talk with about what your next steps are, just believe that there's always a solution and there's always guidance, and ask for it. Just say, help, show me what I need to know today. That's all. And you're talking to God, creator, angels, ascended masters, all of it. Show me what I need to know today, and say it out loud, and say it before you go to bed. And then all of a sudden in the morning, different answers, different solutions will rush through. And then you can look at it all and see what works best for you. And the hope, when something like that happens and you experience that you're never alone, that instills hope. And then it takes to the next step, and then it takes you to the following step and grows from there.
And I believe you three of you being on this show today is someone's next step. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Laura, Laurie, all of you, Eileen, beautiful group.
Yes. And so with that, Laura, just tell us a little bit about your program, what was it called?
iPride?
Yes, iPride.
iPride. So yeah, it's the letter I, pride, which is kind of self-esteem. And I started it in 2015 to work with youth. And it doesn't have to necessarily, it's not abused youth, because I don't want to single out a classroom and say, okay, if you've been abused, stand up. So it's just important for all the kids to learn self-esteem tools. So we do mindfulness, meditation, creative expression, judgment-free listening, presentation skills, from walking up to say their name, to eye contact, and just really embracing their own individuality as well as those around them.
I love that. Wow, you need to be in every school.
I've been busy.
That's great. Okay, Laurie, tell us a little bit about how you help others.
Well, Guided by Grace Virtual Book Club. It's funny how all the stories, everything in my life changed starting in January this year. I mean, it was just a new thing. One of my teachers, her name is Mia Racinko, just texted me and said, hey, let's start a virtual book club. And I'm like, I'm so in. This is fantastic. And within 3 seconds, I go, hey, I have a name for it already, Guided by Grace. And she goes, that's it. So because of my experience with Book Club Pittsburgh, we've planned 8 events. 6 of them, the authors will be joining us live through Zoom. Our main platform is Facebook. It's just all you have to do is search Guided by Grace Virtual Book Club. We have super fun things. We have the books every other month, but we also have a virtual meet and greet in December, and we have Mondays. We have Mia's Motivational Mondays. We have Meditations with Mia the third Friday of every month. We have a monthly giveaway, free reading with Mia, anything. We call it Ask Mia Anything, because it could be a reading, it could be spiritual guidance, it could be whatever you need to hear. So the first of every month, we announce the winner of that. So it's just really fun. And the best part about it, I love to say this, we are the only book club where you don't have to read the book.
Oh. Well, you're going to get a slew of people joining your book club.
I absolutely hope so. It's hard because we're so new at building the social media. So we're learning as we go. Our first guest is Deneen Joyner, and she has just done such a wonderful job posting videos and information about herself. So we're just really trying to hope it takes off.
That sounds awesome.
One of our authors is also from the United Kingdom. Mia is a medium, and she reads for him, and she's helping him channel his second book. So it's just a fantastic opportunity. And the other thing we say, this isn't Larry King, just like we're like, get you a cup of coffee and a glass of wine and just listen. because some people they don't feel comfortable joining in, but just listen, so.
That's awesome. I wanted to find out also, do you have your poems in a book?
They will be in the women's, in Mayhem to Miracles. It says the Greater Women's Yellow Pages of Greater Pittsburgh, but she changed the name to Women's Resources Around Pittsburgh. So it's like wrap, like that's a wrap, and they'll be in there. There's also, I wrote an article about Reiki, and then my friends Mia, Peg, and Linda, they wrote about, oh my goodness, there's probably 8 articles in there. There's a whole spiritual section. It's like a magazine. So
that's
there's
awesome.
essential oils, and my friend Peg is an empath coach. There's just a bunch of information. So we'll post that in Guided by Grace, little teaser to get you to sign up to read those articles and get to know us. So
that sounds amazing. Thank you,
really
Laurie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Deborah.
Yeah.
So tell us about your dream vision and anything else that you want to talk about that you do to help people.
About the network, I always go back to the station and the network. And it's interesting how the messages come. Someone had said to me, I started a radio show in terrestrial radio, local radio, and it was all about matchmaking back then. And then someone there said, oh, you should have your own station, your own network. And it just rang my bell. It just, I was like, I have no idea of what to do or how to do it, but I liked the idea. So I went to town all by myself and learned a lot of lessons in there. And but the whole premise at the beginning, and still is today, is that the people that come, the whole radio hosts with podcasts, or we're producing for them, as you know, their hearts are there and they really want to serve. Most of them have a modality. Most of them are authors, and they're turning that into a message of hope, a message of sharing with people tools, different tools that they can pick and choose and add to their own toolbox. So it's all about healing. It's all about coming together in community and love, because love is all there is. When it comes down to it, you can use love to release the heaviness. You can use love to raise the vibration of unity consciousness. It's all about love.
It is. And I can see the love through all of you today. And I really appreciate you sharing and talking about how you come through those dark stages of your life to be the light and be there for others. So thank you for being on my show today. This has been awesome. And a reminder, Mayhem to Miracles. Yeah, it's okay. And the book can be found on Amazon. And please, read their stories, and hopefully you're inspired and you'll visit their contact information and join the book club. And any kids that need self-esteem, have them contact Laura. And then, of course, the Dream Vision, listen to the radio shows that are on her station. So I wish all of you the best, and we will catch up again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.